Today we're going to review some of the concepts we've been working on the last couple of weeks, and one of them is mixed numbers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some numbers and you're going to go ahead and write them down on a piece of paper, and this is going to go quickly. So what I want to be able to do is to be able to give you the information, you write it down, and then we move on to the next one. So I will give you an example. The first one's going to be 2 wholes and 1/2. So what I would like you to write is a mixed number for 2 wholes and 1/2. So what you would do on your paper just really quickly is you'd write 2 and 1/2. It's as simple as that. So we're going to do this really quickly just to kind of warm up our brains and review what we've learned so far. And I will give them to you really quickly, so be ready, okay? The next one is 4 2/3. So 4 wholes and 2/3. Go ahead and write that and see if you write what I write. Okay. Next one is 3 wholes, 1/4. 3 wholes, 1/4. Write it down. And the last one we'll do together is 5 3/8. 5 wholes and 3/8. Go ahead and write that down. And this is what it should look like. Okay, now we're going to move on to improper fractions. So I will show you what that looks like. So improper fractions, I'm going to read to you some improper fractions and I want you to write them down. So the first thing I want you to write down is 11/4. And your answer really quickly, because we're trying to go fast, is 11/4, just like that. Next one I want you to write is 18/5. Write down 18/5. Okay, very good. Next one I want you to write is 7/2. 7/2. And the last one is 21/6. Write down 21/6 is an improper fraction. 21/6. Very good. Hopefully all of this is ringing a bell for you. Now what we're going to do is something a little bit different. I'm going to be giving you some numbers, and I want you to be able to change them from a mixed number to an improper fraction. So we'll start with that. So I'm going to give you, let's see, I'll give you 8/5. So this is from last week, right? And what do you remember this bar saying? It says divided by, right? So if you remember that, all you need to do is say 8 divided by 5 and then write it just the way it sounds. Okay? Now, a lot of us will think it would be, it's weird to look at that and see the fraction bar saying divided by, but that's really what it's saying. So we're taking something and dividing it into equal parts. So that's what the denominator is. All right, so just to review this, what you do is you divide 8 by 5 and you write your answer up here. So 5 can go into 8 only once, right? And then we multiply. So 1 times 5 is 5. And then we subtract. And this becomes what? What do we call this number? It starts with a numerator, right? It's the numerator. It starts with an N. I gave the answer away. It starts with an N. It means numerator. And then this is always the denominator. Okay? Let's try another one for practice. Hopefully these are feeling pretty smooth for you. Let's do this one, 19/6. Okay? 19 divided by 6. That's our division problem. And to make it into a mixed number, we're going to write it just like this. And we're going to ask ourselves, how many 6's go into 19 without going over? Now I know that 6 times 2 is 12. And I know that 6 times 3 is 18. And I know that I can stop there because if I add another 6, I'm going to get well above 19. So I'm going to go with 3. And do I put my 3 here? No, you're right. I put it right here because I'm dividing into the whole number of 19. Now I'm going to multiply. 6 times 3 is 18. I subtract. And my remainder is my numerator. So I'm going to write 1/6. So that's a kind of a quick review of how to do that. If you forget how to do this, you can always come back to this video and watch this a couple of times just to get the hang of it. But I think it's really good practice. Next thing that I want you to do is I want you to take a look at a mixed number, and I want us to turn it into an improper fraction. And the reason we need to be able to do this quickly is so that we can add and subtract fractions quickly by using different strategies. And what we want to be able to do is rename these numbers and these fractions and these mixed numbers into something that makes adding and subtracting easier. So what this is showing is 2 1/4. And I'm going to just model what that would look like. So here's 1 whole, here's 2 wholes, and here's 1/4, right? 2 1/4. But what would this be in a mixed number? That's what we have to think about. So we have to think about how many fourths are in 1 whole. So I'm going to cover up the whole with fourths. And there's 4, obviously, right? And then I will cover up the next one. And now what I'm doing is I'm just simply counting up all the fourths. And I'm doing this model again just to show you how we get our answers so that it makes sense to you. But what I want you to start getting yourself thinking about is, instead of making a model each time, how do we calculate this? So let's go ahead and just count up the model, and then we'll talk about how we can calculate it. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 2 wholes and 1/4 equals 9/4, and that would be our improper fraction. Now, if we didn't have models for that, we would need to either draw a model on our paper, or we could just think about it mathematically, and that's what I'd like you to start doing. I want you to think to yourself, how many fourths are in 1 whole? Well, there's 4. So 1 times 4 would be 4, but we have 2. So if we multiply this number by how many fourths in each one, we're going to get a number. And that number is 2 times 4 is 8. And then if we add that to the 1, because we're counting fourths, so I will show you the model one more time. So just so you can see where I got my multiplication problem. I said 2 wholes times 4 parts each is 8 parts, so 8/4. And then we already had 1/4 there, so I'm going to add it. So now I'm going to add up all of my fourths, and again, I'm going to get 9/4. Okay, let's try another one and figure that out mathematically as well. Okay, so let's go with 3 1/5. This one's a little bit bigger and a little more complicated just because fifths are kind of difficult to draw a picture of because it's an odd number and it can be a little tricky. So we're just going to think about 1 whole having 5 parts. And this is what I'm thinking about in my mind. One whole has 5 parts. And I'm not drawing the parts. I'm just going to put a 5 there. And if I had 3 of these, and they're not the right size, but if I had 3 of these, I would have 5/5, 10/5, 15/5, or 5 times 3. I already have 1/5, so I'm going to say 3 times 5 is 15, and I'm going to add it to my 1/5, and my answer for this mixed number is 16/5. Okay, so that is a little review on changing mixed numbers back and forth from improper fractions. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to be doing some adding and subtracting today. And what I would like to show you is this picture right here. So hopefully you can see that, and hopefully I can also do some writing here so that you can see what we're talking about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover that up, and I want you to take a look at this picture, and I think I'll get my slate back here. So this picture, I'm going to tell you what it says because it might not be perfectly clear to you at the moment. So this is 1 whole, this is 2 wholes, and this is 2 6. So I'd like you in your notebook to write 2 and 2 6. Okay, now I'd like you to write minus how many 6 there are here. And there are 5 6 there. So this is what I'm writing. Okay, 2 and 2 6 minus 5 6. So I'm going to move this over because I'm kind of running out of room. But what I want to show you is when we're subtracting, one of the methods that we can use is when we can't take 5 from 2, just like in real addition and subtraction of whole numbers, we can't do that. So we essentially need to borrow, just like we do in addition and subtraction with whole numbers. And we also carry. So what I'm going to do, this is my magic trick for the day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this whole, and I'm not going to get rid of it completely. I'm just going to rename it. I'm going to take it away, and I'm going to share it over here. And you can be thinking of place value here. These are whole numbers and these are fractions. So now what I have is I have 6 6, which did equal this 1 whole, plus 2 more. So now I have 8 6. And I need to take away 5 to get my answer. So what I'm going to do is from here, I'm going to take away 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this will be my answer. Okay, I took 5 away, and my final answer is 1 and 3 6. So we're going to try that mathematically in our notebook, on our notebook paper. So I'd like you to make sure you have something to write with still. And I'd like you to write what I'm writing just so we can do some of these together before you get your assignment today. Okay. So let's do 2 and 1/4 minus 3/4. So we can't say what is 1/4 take away 3/4. So what we need to do is we need to rename this 2. And the way we rename this 2 is we can take 1 whole and keep it 1, and then take the other whole and turn it into fourths. So I'm going to do this. 1 plus 4/4 equals 2. I'm then going to add this fourth because I need to account for that fourth. So I'm going to add 1/4 there. And I'm now going to rename this as 1 5/4. So it all is the same amount, but I'm renaming it. Oops, I put my 5 in the wrong place. 1 5/4. Do I still have 2 wholes and 1/4? Yes, I do, because 4/4 plus 1/4 equals 5/4. Now what I have is a quick subtraction problem. What is 5/4 take away 3/4? You are correct. It is 2/4. So I will write 2/4, and my answer here will be 1, because I'm just bringing that down. There's nothing to subtract from. So that is what you do when you need to subtract when this numerator is bigger than the numerator up there. You basically borrow. Okay, shall we do one more for practice? Let's do this one. Let's do 4 minus 2 3/5. What in the world are we going to do with that? So there's no fraction here because there is a 4 right there. That is 4 wholes, right? So again, think about what you need to do. And if you want to try this one on your own, go ahead. And you can pause the video. If you want to see or do this with me, I would love you to do this with me with your pencil and paper while I'm doing it so that you can kind of get the hang of it. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate again. I have 4 wholes. I want to borrow one, and that's where the word borrow comes from. So I'm borrowing 4 wholes, but instead of calling it a 1, I'm going to call it fifths. So how many fifths make 1 whole? You are right, 5/5. If I eat 5/5 of a pizza, I've eaten a whole pizza, right? So now what you're going to do is you're going to subtract 5/5 minus 3/5. And on this one, you're going to subtract 3 minus 2. And this is our final answer, 1 2/5. This strategy works really well. What it does take is repetition. So I really encourage you to practice it before you say it's too tricky or too difficult. You just need to practice it, and if it helps you to draw models of this, that's a great way to understand what you're doing. If you understand this is a great strategy as well. I'm going to give you 3 practice pages that I'd like you to do for your independent practice today. And if there's a page that you would like to post on Padlet, I'd love to see what you're doing. All right, I'll see you next time.